Hi everybody, it's Geordie from Geordie Colours. Thank you so much for joining me. We are here with page number 5 of our full book colour along in R.J.Hampson's gorgeous little book called Awake, and this page is called Memoir. So we've got our cute little I'm going to do him a ginger striped cat typing out his memoir on his typewriter here. So let's start with the cat, and I'm going to do him in some orangey coloured shades, like I say. So I have, let's see if I can hold these up without dropping them all. I have YR8, YR107, YR7 and E090, which is a very light colour. I'm just going to use that in little areas. So I just want to make sure I've got these in the right order of colour. I've got my colour chart here. So yeah, YR8 is the darkest. It's a bit hard to tell sometimes from the tips because they look fairly similar, but YR8 is the darkest. So I'm going to start, as always, with my darkest and lay in some shadow. And I've got the wrong end. So these markers actually came from the skin tone set mostly. So they're not a really bright orange. They've got a bit of a brownish kind of tinge to them. So I'm just going to start with his head and lay in some shadow. So today I'm going to kind of have the light source directly coming straight down on top of him, which just kind of makes it nice and easy for where the shadows will go. So pretty much all the way around the edges really for the shadows, and just a kind of lighter part towards the top area. So it's going to be darker on this side. I'm going to add a little bit more to that side, and then just a line of darkness around there. Okay, so just add a little bit more in there, and then let's go in with our next darkest, which is YR7. There's not a huge amount of difference between these colours, but just a little bit of difference. Kind of go up like that. Add a little bit under his eyebrows, maybe a little bit under his eyes as well. Just leave a bit for my darkest colour. I'm just going to kind of bring that up into a bit of a point in front of his nose, and then we'll use our lightest, which is YR107, and just kind of blend that out a bit. So again, I'm using my Transitype Perfect colouring paper for this, so it's really good for alcohol marker work. Okay, in between those stripes, we're going to do the stripes obviously a different colour. And try and blend that out. So this one you can see is quite brownish and quite a lot lighter than the others. So I'm probably going to have to work quite hard in those transition areas to get it looking right. And I may go back in with my mid-tone marker to help blend this out and smooth it out. Forgot to add a little bit of that mid-tone colour under his eyebrow here. I'm just going to add a little bit of that mid-tone in places just to help me blend it out. So the more alcohol marker you apply, the wetter the paper will be, the easier it will be for it to kind of blend it together and get a smoother blend, which is what I like about alcohol markers, because if you work at them long enough, you can get a nice transition between colours. And what can look a little bit patchy to begin with will smooth out eventually. Okay, so once this dries down, I think that's going to be nice and it's going to look good. So we'll leave it at that for his head. Let's move on to the rest of his body. So I'm going to start kind of with this arm and this little bit of leg here. I always like to work in sections because it just makes it easier. You can work while the alcohol marker is still wet on the paper and it doesn't dry out too much. So little thin sections here. I'm leaving the very tips of his paws because I'll do them in a lighter colour again. And we'll just do it like that. Let's do this other little arm. Again, just remembering that my light source is coming from directly above, so trying to lay in my shadows accordingly. I'm not always great with that. It's like, it doesn't, you know, it's not the end of the world if you don't get it right. I do try and remember, but sometimes I kind of forget and I just add stuff everywhere. But I try and remember for the most part. Okay, let's do the rest of this leg here. So I'm going to add the darkest marker in there because it's pretty in shadow. And some of these little curves where it's going to be quite shadowed. And around his kind of bum there. And then we can blend that out. And go in with the lightest. So thank you to everyone who's been colouring along or, you know, doing some of these pages. I've really enjoyed seeing some of your completed pages. It's been a lot of fun. I've been watching R.J.Hampson do some of these pages as well, and it's really, really cool to see how different everybody's turns out. I really like that. I think that's the best thing about doing like a group buddy color or like a, you know, a full book color along that other people join in. You can see how different other people interpret the page and what they do differently, and I just think it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy that aspect of it. Okay, let's do his tail. Again, just always starting with my darkest marker, blending out with my mid-tone, and then finishing up with my lightest. But as I say, do what works for you. If you prefer to kind of lay down the lighter marker first, do that. This is just the way I do it. I'm no expert, but I just, yeah, prefer to do it this way. Okay, so that's the main part of my cat done. I'm going to keep this YR107 marker out, and I'm going to pull in that lighter one, which is the E090. Sorry, hopefully you can see that there. And I'm going to do the kind of face, the belly, the paws, the tip of his tail. So I'm going to start with the 107, get the right end, and I'm going to lay a little bit of that one in again, creating my shadows where they need to be. Might just do it down each side of his little nose there, and then we're going to blend out with the lighter marker. You could leave these parts white if you wanted to, but I just thought it would look kind of fun to have a little bit of colour on them. Okay, same with his little paws here. Like I say, really, really quick, simple, easy colouring. This is just fun, you know, like it's not it's not meant to look like a masterpiece. It doesn't have to. It's about just enjoying the process, having fun, spending, you know, 20-30 minutes colouring and seeing a result at the end of it. Sometimes when you colour a more detailed page, if you spend 20 or 30 minutes colouring it, you might only get a tiny part of it done, which isn't a bad thing, but it's sometimes nice to get like to see a finished page, you know, like to have that kind of feeling of achievement. I'm like that anyway. I don't know if you're like that, but I'm very much like that. I'm very much driven by the idea of seeing something completed. It makes me happy. So yeah, and sometimes it's nice, you don't have a great deal of time to do, you know, a really detailed page. It's nice just to sit down and know that you can spend 20-30 minutes and have a completed page at the end of it, and a fun page at that. Okay, that's his belly. Let's do his tail. And I mean, you can add as much detail to this if you wanted. You could add like pencil shading to create fur strokes on him. I just want to keep this really, really basic. So I'm not doing anything like that whatsoever. Really simple. And his little feet down here under the table. Again, you know, they might be a bit shaded in reality, but I'm just going to kind of color them as though my light source is coming directly on top of them. So it just, like I say, I'm not trying to be clever. It's just really simple stuff. Okay, all that's left for him really is his stripes and a few other little details. So let's do his stripes. So I've pulled out a slightly darker kind of brownish orange color pair here. I've got YR10 and E060. I'm just gonna again check which one is the darker one, because okay, so yeah, YR10 is going to be the darker. It's kind of hard to tell because they're slightly different shades, but you can't really tell which one is darker and which one is lighter. So I'm going to go with the YR10 as my darker shade. And again, because my light source is coming from the top, my darkest color is going to go towards the bottom of these little stripes here. And then blend them out. So you could go with black for these stripes. I just decided to do them brown, just thought it kind of, and it kind of a brownish orange, just to kind of tone everything in a little bit and make it look a bit more, I don't know, like cohesive. I didn't want it to look like a tiger. I wanted it to look like a cat. So I decided to go with brown and orange instead of orange and black like a tiger stripe. Okay, we're going to do his little eyebrows here as well in this darker color. Apologies if the noise of the marker cap annoys you. I know I'm pulling them on and off quite constantly. It's just, I don't like to leave them uncapped. I live in a very hot country. We have air conditioning going all the time. So they dry out super quick if you leave the markers off for any length of time. So I'm always a bit paranoid about leaving the markers off. I know some people like just take the markers off and color the bits that they want to color, but like I say, because of where I live and the fact that I have aircon going constantly, I feel the need to keep the markers popping back on again, just because I'm worried about them drying out. Okay, let's do these stripes here. Oops, I've gone out of the line a little bit there, but it's not going to matter too much. Not the end of the world. These lines are a little bit thinner than the rest of them, so I should really be a bit more careful, shouldn't I? Kind of going in a little bit heavy-handed there. And that's the great thing about a brush marker, is that you can get a much finer point and much finer details than if you have just like the bullet nibs. So that's why I prefer the brush markers. But again, you know, it's not the end of the world if you don't have the brush markers. You just have to be a little bit more careful in the finer details. But again, if you go outside the lines, it doesn't really matter. It's just about having fun. Okay, let's finish up my little kitten here. We're going to do his little nose, the inside of his ears, his mouth, and for that I'm using R18 and E470. So we'll go with E470 first, which is the darker one. It's a very pale pinkish color anyway, so yeah, you can, oh, I've got the wrong end. It's really not gonna, I really just kind of want that contrast in his ears rather than anywhere else. So I'm gonna go in with that darker marker again and just add a little bit more shading, so it's a bit more prominent. Okay, so that's my cat pretty much done. Let's do his collar. I'm going to do this kind of purplish blue color. So I have a B340 and B350 for this, and I just thought that the contrast between the purple and the orange looked quite nice. So I'm going to add some darker marker there. There's not much room for the lighter one, but it's okay. I kind of like that contrast between the purple and the orange. It's a really good, they're contrasting colors, so I like that. I'm going to do his food bowl in this color as well. So one thing I do like to do is I like to use the same shade in multiple areas of the page so that it kind of ties the colors together. Sometimes if you have just one little spot of color in one area, it can look a little bit odd, like, well, not odd, but yeah, I think it makes the page more cohesive when you have the same color, especially if it's just in tiny little parts of the page, like his collar and his bowl here. It kind of, it just pulls it together a little bit more if it's in multiple places rather than it just in one little spot, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so that's the bowl. I forgot to do the food in the bowl, which I'm going to do the same color as the brown stripes. So again, I'm reusing those same colors. I don't have to pull them out again. It's E060 and YR10. Which one did I say was the darkest? Oh, the white. Yeah, the YR10. I couldn't remember. So just going to do the food in his bowl. Again, it's only a very small area, so it doesn't need much. And I'm also going to do the little table in these colors too, just to pull them all together. So my light's coming here. The shading is going to kind of be at the back of the table here. And the typewriter is going to be casting a bit of a shadow. So pretty much this back bit is going to be all in shadow. I'm going to do it like that. Let's just work on the top of the table first. I'll blend that out. And you can see my printer was not working the best, so I've got a few kind of stripes through my printing, but I'm not worried. It's just, like I say, this is just a bit of fun, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, I'm going to go back in with that darkest marker just to darken up those shadows a bit more. These two colors are quite similar, so even though they're from different color families, there's not a great huge contrast between them, so it's nice to go back and define those shadows. Okay, so I'm presuming that the table kind of edges out a little bit over the legs, so I'm going to add shadow underneath there. And then I'm always confused about this bit. I'm going to add it along these edges on the inside bit and down there. Again, it doesn't have to be a perfect science. It is what it is. I'm not an expert when it comes to figuring out light sources. I just kind of try my best. So, and it seems to work for the most part. It doesn't look too bad. So we'll just add that lighter shade in. Okay, I'm going with that darker marker again and just really define those shadows a little bit more. Okay, so it's my table done. So all that's left is our typewriter and a few other little bits and pieces. So I decided I'm going to do my typewriter in a turquoisey colour. I don't know if that's the right choice or not, but I just felt like doing it in a turquoise colour. So I have PB10 and a G340 here. So I'm going to start with that PB10 and I'll lay in some shadows. I don't know, I just thought a turquoise typewriter was kind of fun. Let's lay that in there. Have a little bit under that bit there. And let's see, I'll blend that out and see how it looks. I'm not quite sure what colour to do the other little bits and pieces on it, but let's I'm going to add that darker bit and again just redefine those shadows a little bit. And we're going to kind of do a little bit around the keys here. I'm trying to see what various bits are. Let's do this bit. I don't know if that is right or not, but I'm going to do that in turquoise as well. I might even add, I don't know, let's do these bits in turquoise as well. I haven't seen a typewriter for so long, I've kind of forgotten what they look like, as in, you know, what bits are what colours, but we'll go with this. We'll see how it works. Okay, for the keys of the typewriter, I'm going to do them in kind of a grey colour along with this bit here. So I have CG204 and CG2. So the CG204 is my darkest marker. So actually let's start with the kind of little tag on his collar. Let's add in some grey to that. Make it look like silver, and we'll do the same on these bits here. So these are quite small bits, so I'm going to do multiple at the same time. And smooth that out. Okay, keys on the typewriter. I'm kind of unsure, but I think I'll end up doing them this silver colour or grey colour. So I'm going to start with my lightest marker this time because they're quite a small area. So I'm going to add my lightest colour, and then I'm just going to add a very tiny touch of the darkest marker over the top in various places, just to add a little bit of shadow. It's a very, very small area, so don't worry too much. Finally, I'm going to colour the paper, and I just want to add a touch of shading. So I've got YG040, and I'm just going to add, like I say, a very small touch of shadow on that, just to kind of create the idea of it being paper, but I don't want it to look brown or grey. I want it to look white, so we're just adding a touch of shadow. Okay, pretty much done. Really didn't take long at all. Let's add some white gel pen details. So I'm going to try this one today. It's my Uniball Signo broad tip pen, and let's add some shadows in. So some highlights rather, not shadows. Let's add some highlights. I'm never quite sure where to put these. I just kind of go in willy-nilly and hope for the best. Hope it's going to turn out all right. A few dots and dashes here and there always, I think, always just add something to it. Let's add some to the top of his nose. Not that you're going to notice it much. It's pretty light, that part. A little bit on his collar here, and on the what's that called again? Tag. Oh, I love it when my mind goes blank. Okay, we're gonna go down his tail, just kind of on that top part, a few lines and dashes around his paw here. And don't be afraid to cross lines, because I think it looks a little bit more kind of organic when you do that. I don't know. It's just my opinion. But yeah, do what makes you happy. Do what feels good. Like I say, I am no expert when it comes to this bit, but I do just like the effect that it gives, especially on a cartoony kind of picture like this. I just think it adds a touch of something. I'm not sure what. Let's add a little bit to the top of the keys. Let me add some to this part of my typewriter. This part of the table. Just kind of thinking of which bits might catch the light. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. And just kind of do what works for you. There's no right or wrong, and it's as long as you're having fun, that's all there is to it. Okay, let's do some to the top of his bowl here, and maybe down the side. And that's pretty much all I'm going to do with this one. I'm just going to add a very small touch of glossy accents to his eyes because I do love to use my glossy accents. And then we'll be pretty much done. So let's see if I can get this to come out today. I always have difficulty getting my glossy accents out. It's always clogged up. I don't know why. I try and make sure that I've cleaned it before I put it away, but it still clogs up. All right, let's see. Yep, that's working. I like using my glossy accents. I kind of feel like I've rediscovered them recently and I'm using them on everything. But they just add a little bit of fun. So they can look a little bit creamy yellowish when you first put them on, but they will dry clear, so do not panic. And that is it. That's our little page done for today. I think he's so cute. This is Memoir from R.J.Hampson's cute book Awake. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody. Take care. Bye.